The Super Nintendo brought many new features and improvements over the NES. Better graphics, better sound, more colors, more buttons, and more fishing games. The Black Bass series continued onto the Super Nintendo with Super Black Bass. I'm not gonna lie, I don't have too much to say about this game. Super Black Bass sees a huge improvement over its predecessors. While the sprites aren't earth-shattering, you can at least make out what each one is trying to represent for the most part. There's not a whole lot of music this time around, and that's not really a bad thing. Super Black Bass opts to go for more of an atmosphere due to it. The thing is though, Super Black Bass is still pretty difficult. The gameplay has an emphasis on lures and how you use them still, only this time it's even more so. In fact, fish won't bother with you if you don't use them correctly or consistently, similar to the previous game. This time around, however, you can actually tell what each fish is. Maybe not right off the bat, but still. Black shadows are only there to represent a fish that's both big and deep underwater. The thing is though, that realism aspect is also still there. There are several different lakes and tournaments that you compete in, and similar to Blue Marlin and King Salmon, your character does have stats that slowly go up as you catch more fish. But Super Black Bass is boring. Very, very boring. It's pretty slow and almost gives you too much room to cast or work with. For instance, you can drive your boat, which I like to do, pick a spot, have all this area to choose where to cast, wait for your angler to finally finish casting, then reel in. Only to find there aren't any fish at all where you cast. At least it doesn't seem like it. While the ripple effect on the water is neat, it's a little bit distracting and can make it difficult to see fish, especially ones that are deep underwater. It's not to the point that it's frustrating, mind you, it's just boring. But, moving on, we have the second Black Bass title on the Super Nintendo, Basson's Black Bass. Technically, it's Basson's Black Bass with Hank Parker, since Hank Parker is supposed to be this game's Mike Tyson, I guess. On the surface, it's almost like the same game, and for the most part, it plays similarly to Super Black Bass. This time around, though, there are some key differences that make this title better than the last. For starters, you can take a guide with you during the first couple of levels. He's pretty useful, since he'll tell you where to go and what kind of lure to use depending on where you attempt to fish at, which helps you get ready for the later stages. Basson's also adds in character creation in place of stats. It's not the most robust thing, there aren't many options outside of a handful of colors, hats, and facial features, but for this time, it's pretty neat to see. This is also the title that finally adds the marker to the series. As dumb as it might seem to get excited over, this marker lets you scout the area to see if there's anything worth checking out, thus avoiding the issue of casting and waiting and reeling over and over again like in Super Black Bass. Plus, it just makes casting way easier. Speaking of being easier, using the right lure and getting them to attract fish is actually fairly simple this time around, especially with the guide explaining to you how each one works. Is it dumbing it down a bit? Sure, but it makes the game a bit more accessible and in turn fun. And yeah, it's still grounded in being a simulator, and sure, it may have a bit of a curve to it, but Basson's is the first game in the Black Bass series I can recommend at all. If you give it some time, you'll find a pretty decent little game here, but it's all about having a little bit of patience. And you know what? I could go on the rest of the summer talking about Black Bass alone, but I'm all out of patience. We gotta go bigger, something award-worthy, something trophy level.